Hello and welcome to Never Show the Monster. This week we're talking about Dead and Breakfast, the single most perfect film to ever exist in this entire world. Maybe the single most perfect piece of art. I think I'm willing to go that far. I hope you enjoy this episode. And next week, if you want to join us for our viewing, we're going to be watching The Postcard Killings. It's another Jeffrey Dean Morgan movie, but it will be transitioning us into our next cluster of movies, which are going to be movies centered on art. You'll hear more about that next week. For now, enjoy our conversation about Dead and Breakfast. Like I said, the most perfect film ever to exist. I hope you can find it online somewhere.
Drink that I am drinking on.
Yeah, I think you should.
Or should we talk about the movie? So we're gonna now talk about Dead and Breakfast, which is probably the best movie I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Ever. And there is a scene in the movie in which they go to a farm party.
Yeah.
Barn party.
A barn party. It's a barn party.
Yeah. So already selling it. And they offer them a Mexican bladder infection, which is cranberry juice with tequila, which luckily I have both of these items in my refrigerator. So I made sure to pour myself a beverage prior to the recording of the bit about Dead and Breakfast.
Perfect. Oh, I wish that I had come prepared.
So good. But it also, I did cran apple, so it is a little...
It's just festive.
Yeah, it's for the season. The time that theirs happened seemed to be middle of the summer, or you know what? It wasn't really hot or time specific. They were able to wear jackets. Maybe it was fall. So the apple would make sense. So I tried to make it more festive.
Maybe it was spring because they were going to a wedding, right? That's wedding season.
Yeah, fall and spring are usually wedding season.
So group of friends going to a wedding. In this very ugly van.
It's an RV.
Oh, it's an RV?
Because one of my questions is, if they have an RV, why do they need to find a place to sleep?
There are too many of them. They can't all sleep in that RV.
They could. I mean, they have the area above.
They don't even like that one guy.
Yeah, they really don't. Which what I loved was every actor was somebody I knew from a different thing. And all of them were people that may not have been in things other than that other thing. But they were all amazing, and I love everyone in the cast. Oh, and okay, to give like an idea of beforehand, it was a movie that came out, and it was like a $400,000 budget. I think it only premiered at, and I'm going to feel bad if I'm wrong about this, I think it only premiered at film festivals and didn't have a wide release.
Oh,
or if it did have a wide release. Yeah, so that's why it was so hard for us to find, which is the pre-story we could tell about this as well.
Yeah.
Kelly found it and watched it on was it Apple TV?
It was on Apple.
To rent?
Yeah, I rented it a couple months ago now. And it was so good. It was so good. We weren't initially going to talk about it on the podcast, but I was like, Chelsea, no, this is the best movie. But by the time...
I was skeptical. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I was completely skeptical because I had looked at the cover and I had looked at pictures and I was like, okay, that's fine.
I know, it looks so bad. It looks so bad. I understand why you were skeptical. Yeah. I too was skeptical. The trajectory of my notes are like, first note is like, is this... Oh, I see, it's bad. Oh, it's a bad movie. And then a few notes later, it's, okay, actually, it's good? Question mark.
Which and is then, the roller coaster.
Like, my last note is like, perfect movie.
Which I think is accurate. That's completely accurate. You go in with the lowest expectation in the world, and then you're like, this is going to be terrible. And then you're like, how?
And it starts off like, oh, it's really going to be bad. Like, but then you settle into it, and it's a real good time. So I was able to find it online, and then it was removed. We went to go watch it again for the pod, and it was no longer anywhere on the internet. Don't tell the feds, but I even had a friend of mine who still torrents stuff look for it, and he couldn't find it.
So we thought we were up the creek. I couldn't find it. I hadn't watched it yet, so I was like, well, we can't talk about it if I mean, Kelly could talk about it. She probably could carry this entire thing, honestly. But I was like, I haven't watched it, and we couldn't find it anywhere, and we kept looking everywhere. I was like, maybe if we buy it on eBay. And the ones on eBay were like $50-$60 for a copy, and I was
Yeah,
like, it won't
I
come in
looked
on
too.
time. And I remember like we were talking about recording it like a couple days after, and I was like, it won't come in for another like month. So everything had like a month waiting time, and we kept looking everywhere. And then I was like, you know what? I live in a major city. Maybe there's a video store place that I can look at. And so I Googled it, and there's a place called Scarecrow Video that is in the University District of Seattle, and they have all of the movies, every one of them that has ever existed in all of time. I mean, I'm probably wrong on that, but I was shocked at the selection. But they had it, and they had it for rent, and I got to rent a movie for the first time in a decade, and it was an incredible experience. And trying to figure out on what
How to
item that
play
I
a
own I could
DVD.
watch. I was like, we rented it, and then we got back to the apartment, and I was like, oh, how do I watch it? Like none of my computers have drives anymore for me to put that in there. So we dusted off an old laptop that was questionable, and it also didn't work initially on it. It didn't work with Windows Media Player. I was texting Kelly nonstop, like, this is what's coming up. It's not working. I don't know why it's not working. And I was like losing my shit. And I was like, this is not going to happen. I'm so upset. And eventually we downloaded VLC Media Player.
Yeah,
and it started working with that. Yeah, and it started working with that. It didn't work initially. It was a weird thing because of the DVD menu. Because you guys remember those, the menus that you had options for, and you could go to chapters of movies, and movies had chapters. I forgot what that was like. That life is completely unknown to me now. Thank you, streaming. But I just got to walk down memory lane in order to get this movie, and I could not be happier that I did, because not only did it show me a place that is amazing, it introduced me to one of my new favorite movies. That's what I had to say about that.
So good. It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, if no one wants to hear spoilers, I would recommend going and watching it and then coming back to this and then talking to us about it.
I mean, good luck finding it unless you're in Seattle and you can go to this.
But I might keep running it, so it might not be there. So sorry, guys. I don't know. Hopefully there will be some kind of a resurgence, because I did go through a bunch of like reviews of it, and I got like viscerally angry at people who gave it low reviews. Like I've never been angry at people for giving. I was like, they don't get it. They don't get it. They're too dumb. I was like, they're just not of my level. Like I can't. It just made me so upset. Like somebody had compared it to like Shaun of the Dead, and I was like, oh yeah, a $4 million budget and a $500,000 budget are equal for sure. So I was really pissed off. But perfect movie, perfect cast. Let's go. Let's jump into it.
Let's get started.
So they showed up, or they're in the shitty van, or the shitty RV. It's a very old RV. It looks like it smells.
Looks like it smells very bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very musty. A lot of brown.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of beige and a lot of brown in there. And I can't remember. They start off their conversation just talking about the wedding, and you kind of get introduced to each character. You have a sassy girl and her boyfriend who's like a jock. So it's like I don't want to be like the cheerleader jock combination almost for that couple. Yeah. And then you have like the sweet girl who's driving, or she's in the passenger seat.
She's in the passenger seat.
Who's dating Elton from Clueless? Elton? Is it Elton or Elton?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Do you know? Well, it's the same guy from Clueless. That's why I was like, oh, it's the guy from Clueless. Every character, I was like, oh, it's the guy. Oh, it's the dorky guy from Legally Blonde. Oh, it's the guy from Clueless who was everyone's it's this person that I knew from something else, which is great. And I think some of these movies came after. I think this movie was made after all these big, it was made after Clueless. It was made after.
This is a 2004 movie?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh, it came after all these movies. I was like, but it made me feel very happy, because it felt like all of these actors in it, I don't know. It just seemed so fun.
So fun.
But you get introduced to all the characters, and you have 3 girls. And one's like a stereotypical, like she's a vegan, she doesn't like to harm anything. Another girl is a very sweet girl, and they have two very sweet girls, and then one sassy girl, and two guys that are kind of jerks, and then one kind of nice guy, but he's also very weird.
He's a dork. Yeah.
Yeah, and he like counts all of the. They describe, like, they try to set up his character by being like, oh, he keeps an eye out for roadkill, and he keeps a little tab, so then
Oh,
he can
that's
like,
right.
so he
So
can
you
like
can
say a
pray
little
for
prayer
them
for them.
later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that's how they kind of make fun of him, as being like, oh, he's this kind of a guy. And then they go into town and they stop at a gas station, and there's a band playing outside the gas station, and I was like, okay. I was like, this is fine. And I think this is probably when you start being like, oh, this is a bad movie. Like,
this is for sure when I was like, oh, it's gonna be real bad.
Yeah. It starts out, and then I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, that's fine. This is fine. And then they get gas, and then I think she goes up and asks the I'm gonna say blonde girl and brunette girl. You know what? I'm gonna look at their names and not just they are people. Christian is Elton from Clueless, which doesn't help. David is the guy who's kind of a jock.
Yeah.
Johnny is the dorky guy. Kate is the girl who's kind
Sassy.
of the cheerleader.
Yeah.
Sarah is the blonde girl, and Melody is the one who's a vegan.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm calling her a vegan because she talks a lot about how she's a vegan,
and it plays a part in the movie.
Yes. And then they get to the gas station, and at the gas station, there are two guys playing in a band outside the gas station, and there's also another guy kind of off to the side wearing mostly black, and he has a cigarette, and the cigarette is like broken. No, it's not broken, but Christian runs into him,
breaks it,
and he breaks it, and then he offers him another one. He's like, I'm sorry, man. And I was like, oh, maybe this character's not very mean, because that was a very nice thing of him to do, to be like, I didn't mean to ruin your cigarette.
Yeah, he talks a big talk. He's actually okay.
Yeah. He had been pretty positive in the sorry, I had to move my Mexican bladder infection. Yeah, he was pretty positive, and that was the first sign of his character being a pretty good dude.
Yeah.
And so he hands him the cigarette, and then he starts to light it, and he goes, I don't light them. And then he's like, okay. And then he kind of makes fun of him a little bit, but it's kind of in jest. And then they part ways, I think. And then they ask, oh, hey, they're asking the guys in the band, oh, hey, is there a place to stay? Is there a hotel or anything? Because we need to get some sleep for the night. And that's where I made the note that was like, you're in an RV. Why did you bring an RV if you're going to have to go sleep somewhere? So that's how I felt about that. And I was like, I mean, as somebody who always tries to do things the cheapest possible way, I was like, well, if you have an RV, everyone can just sleep on the floor. I mean, we tried to convert our car to be able to sleep in, which we have not got to like sleep in yet. But that's how I'd rather try to find ways to. But you're right. There are six people.
So many of them. Yeah.
There are 6 people, and you could probably sleep 4 comfortably, but 2 people are going to get the short end of the stick on that.
Yeah.
They'd probably have to sleep like in the driver's seat and the passenger, which would be not ideal.
Plus, they've got to get ready for a wedding in the morning.
Yeah.
They need a hotel.
Yeah, so they went, and they were like, oh, you can stay at the not bed and breakfast. You can stay at, it's called the something inn. I wish I remember the name. It wasn't.
Yeah, I wasn't taking good notes because I thought the movie was going to be bad.
Yeah, right. At the beginning, it just kind of was like, oh, okay, that's not going to be.
But they give them, they're like, it's Mr. Wise's place.
Yeah.
And here's where we learn that this band is not just any band. Oh, no.
And this is where it starts to turn around.
This is where it starts to turn around. This band is our narrator. So they start singing a little song about how you don't go up to Old Wise's place. Bad things happen when people stay at that inn.
That's what I have in like all caps. I was like, is this a musical? Is the narration? What? And it was good. I liked it. I was like, this is catchy. I like this. Do I like this? And that was the moment when it started to turn around.
Yep.
Oh, so good. And so then they make their way up to the house. And it's just this like old white house, kind of like the I don't know, the farmhouse in Beetlejuice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just kind of like a nice little old house. And then they go in, it looks like everything's kind of under renovation. There's like plastic on a lot of the stuff. And then you meet this French guy,
Which,
the
like,
French
why is he
chef.
French? Like, why?
There's a lot of things thrown in here that aren't really necessary, but they enhance it for sure.
They enhance it. This guy is someone. He's a person.
Oh, yeah. He's in. I feel bad because I feel like I should know him more but he's in the Drew Carey show.
Diedrich Bader is his name.
Did you just look him up?
Yeah, I had the IMDb.
I'm glad. But yeah, everyone you see, you're like, oh, I remember all of these people.
Let's see. Oh, he was in Napoleon Dynamite. He's in Jay and Silent Bob, Office Space,
Miss Congeniality 2.
Miss Congeniality 2.
But yeah, seeing him, and he's wearing like a beautiful black turtleneck. He doesn't have a beret on. He just has like a cap and.
But you can tell
glasses.
that he's like channeling beret. You know?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. For sure. And he's like before he even speaks, you can kind of feel like he's French. But he's definitely he's not very mean. He seems all right. But the jock guy, who I'm going to go back to his name again, that's not
like
Christian,
rubbing him the wrong way.
Yeah, David. For sure. He's mean to everyone. He was mean to Johnny. He was mean. He's not mean to Christian because Christian's his bro, but he is just not a super nice dude. But he is mean to the French guy. And I remember because they're all sitting out, and then they all decide that they're going to stay there. And then David Carradine walks out and is like, I'm the guy who owns this place. You know, Bill from Kill Bill is the one who owns
what this
it.
note means. I just have a note that says, is this Bill? In all caps. And I was like, I don't remember writing that.
It's totally Bill. Yeah, it was Bill. And then he's like, yes, you can totally stay here. And you're like, all right. And then the French guy, who I don't know, is he somebody that stays there? Was he somebody that works there? He's
the chef. He's the chef.
Oh, okay. I knew they said he was a French chef, but I thought it was just him being kind. But he did bring out like a tray with mustard on it and some deli meat.
Delicious.
Yeah, I was like, this is not food that I would. And then
so you're a chef.
David felt the same way, and he was very upset and was very sassy about the food, and it was not ideal. And then Sarah's character goes up, and they're all getting ready. They're not getting ready for bed. They're all hanging out. But Sarah goes, and she's walking by, and she sees what is David Carradine's actual? Mr. Wise. Yeah,
Mr.
you said it was singing a song. Mr. Wise. They went up to his room, and he was praying over a box. I think is what happened at that point. And she was like, "Oh, what's that box?" And then I think they just brushed it aside. I don't think he talked about it much.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember that scene. My only notes were from around that time, like she was in the bathroom. I feel like I get so sucked into tiny parts that don't make sense. I was like, is there a spot just made for your butterfly clip? Was that just there for a specific reason? Because it has a shot of somebody watching her outside, staring at her in the bathroom, and she takes her butterfly clip and she puts it on a thing. And I was like, did the bathroom come preset with an area to place your butterfly clip? Because this doesn't look like it's being used for anything else, and you just had a spot for your butterfly clip.
That's where they really spent that $500,000.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know why I'm so caught up on that part, but I was like, okay. And then, so what happens next is that they go to bed, and they had been drinking, I assume, because they all go to bed, and then David's girlfriend says something about him, like, well, just Kate. Her name's Kate. So Kate's just like, oh, we'll just leave him out here. And they're like, she's like, she said the line, like, he won't get it up anyway. And I was like,
oh, that's
I mean,
right,
you guys seem really tired, and you have to get up early. Like, I was like, logically, I mean, you still want to put him in bed, like, and I was like, it's fine, put a blanket over him. He's passed out, I guess.
Felt weird, just leaving him to sleep in the lobby of this hotel, essentially.
Yeah, I was like, you can still put him in a bed. That's not his only use.
Just leave him.
I don't like him, but put him in a bed.
Leave him.
Which is what they did, and then he woke up at like in the AM, I assume.
I think it was still night because he wakes up.
Oh, it was like early AM. It was like 1 a.m., 1 a.m., 2 a.m.
Yeah. So he wakes up and is hungry, goes to the kitchen, And this is where things take a turn. This part really puts the dead in breakfast.
So whenever he took out, he takes out a pie.
He takes out a pie.
And I immediately was like, oh, did they bake the people on the pie? Is that where we're going with this?
Oh.
Are they pie people? And I was like, oh, this is gonna be a cannibalism movie. They're gonna put them in pies and eat them. And I even put in my notes, relook up that place in Kansas where it had a bed and breakfast that they killed the people, and then I did not relook them up.
The Bowman family, maybe?
Is that what it is?
Remember.
I was gonna say also, secondary tip during this podcast. If you ever drive through Kansas, there is a rest stop, and which has a giant sign that tells you the story of a family who would murder people at their bed. Was it a bed and breakfast? It was like a hotel.
I think it was just their house, but they they took in
travelers?
strangers. Yeah. And they got so proficient at murdering that they had to install a chute under the dining table. So they'd bonk the stranger on the head and then drop them through the chute and murder them. Were they cannibals?
I don't know, but I think maybe. I'm trying to remember what I read.
I can't remember, but I found so Chelsea and I both found this rest stop independently, years apart. I found it when I moved to Colorado from Arkansas. I pulled over, stopped at a rest stop to take a nap because Kansas makes me sleepy, and got out of the car to walk around after I woke up, and I had parked directly in front of this giant plaque that tells the story of murderers, and I was like, well, I'm glad I read this after I slept.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing to have at a rest stop because of the fact that it's just like, oh, it's weary travelers who like to murder them.
Historic landmark.
Like, oh, okay, that's fine. I remember stopping at it because it was like kind of hidden, like they didn't advertise it, and then all of a sudden I saw rest stop and I was like,
stop.
I remember like jerking the wheel to the side to get to the rest stop because I didn't think that there was going to be another one for like hours because Kansas. So where were we with Kansas? Oh, so, pie.
Huh?
He was eating the pie.
Oh, pie.
Yeah,
yes,
pie.
He's eating this pie. And correct me if I'm wrong. Somebody comes in and sees him eating the pie, and
I think it was Sarah. I think Sarah walked in to see him eating the pie.
But she also sees that the chef is dead. And is there blood everywhere? He was eating the pie in the dark. There's blood everywhere.
It's all over everything.
And
just
this is like
splattered.
This is such a funny scene. It's like a slapstick. He freaks out, tries to get out of the kitchen, but is like slipping and sliding in all of this blood and is like falling over. Oh man. And at this point I wrote down, is this a comedy?
Yeah. I was like, oh, so it's actually funny. Like that's like, it's not trying to take itself seriously.
No, this movie's goofy and it loves it.
But the lovely French chef is in the corner with a knife in his throat and just blood everywhere. Which is, I have no idea how that even happens. With how he was murdered, but it was more blood than I think a human body could fit inside of it.
I know, which just made it funnier.
Yeah. But whenever they did turn on the light and then they did see him and he was eating the pie, somebody like got upset and she like screamed and he was like, it was in the refrigerator, it was fine, or something like. And then I was like, oh, okay, this is like they're gonna this is gonna be a fun ride. Yeah, I was like, this is gonna be a fun ride. And then it went to, I can't even remember. Oh, they couldn't do anything. Oh, they run upstairs to see what's going on with the Mr. Wise, and he had a heart attack.
Yep.
So he had also passed.
So they're just in this house with a bunch of dead bodies. That does not look good.
Nope. And David was like, I will go take the keys and I will go into town. Because he's obviously like trying to be He's like, I will be the good guy and I will go into town and I will check. You guys stay here with the bodies.
Yeah.
Stay here with the possible killer. I will go do this. And then he does end up like his his girlfriend Kate's like, you don't know how to ride that, and he was like, I do
Because it's a
too.
motorcycle, it's not a car. He's trying to
Yeah.
take a motorcycle.
Yeah, but it was like a dirt bike. It
It was
wasn't
like a
even like a
dirt
real.
bike, yeah.
Yeah.
And what happens? He starts it and the bike goes off without him? Is that what
Yeah.
happens?
And then he has to run forward and he grabs it and he's like, just kidding, I got it. I'm gonna go now. And then he goes, and then it goes to morning, and then Jeffrey Dean Morgan is there with his sidekick.
Jeffrey D. Morgan's the sheriff.
And then he has a sidekick, Deputy Enos. So they show up, and then he's talking to a fish, and Jeffrey
Sorry,
Dean Morgan's
what?
like, there's a fish. And I remember, because I really liked this part, because he was like looking at he's like questioning them, and they're like, well, I mean, there was a dead guy, and then there's another dead guy, and he's like, it's very suspicious that this happened while you were here. And they're like, yeah, we thought it was too. Weird. And then he's talking to the fish, and he's like, I bet you know what happened. And
Oh,
then
that's right.
Johnny was like, no, he doesn't. And then
Goldfish have a
everyone looks
memory
at
of like
Johnny. He's like, fish have a memory of like 10 seconds. He probably doesn't even remember that you had a pen in there or a dart in the fishbowl or something. I was like, I like the logic that they're bringing out in this one. Like, yeah, that makes sense. And I was like, were you guys suspicious of Johnny, the guy who prays for roadkill?
he is
But that
the
was
creepiest one of them in some ways.
Yeah, but just in the way of,
he's just a weirdo.
Yeah. And then, yeah, this part's weird, because I was like, why did they introduce this character? Sarah goes outside for something, and then she meets a deaf mute gardener for the area.
Man, we got another deaf mute character, and we still don't know what the right words are to describe that.
Well, they described it as deaf mute, so I'm using that.
Yeah, but this was 2004.
Okay, we'll have to look this up so we don't keep running into this. So she meets this gardener, and I think
he can neither hear nor speak.
Yeah, that's perfect. And she goes up, and then Melody meets him, the vegan. She goes up, and she was like, hey, I know sign language, because she does everything that's like good in the world. She was like, oh, I taught sign language when I was in like Peace Corps or something.
Yeah.
She it was something like that. So she was signing to him to talk to him about stuff. And there is a point where you hear like a fly buzzing, and then he like looks up, and then you're like, is that part? So that's something about the character that they do twice. And I'm always like, is that saying that he's not? What's happening? Is he evil? But I still have no idea. I feel like this is a joke that I didn't get, that I wanted to get, and I was hoping that you would.
Oh, dang it. I'll rewatch it and text you.
I was going to say, he's definitely not evil, which we find out in a little bit. Or he's not evil that we know of, but something will happen. And then they go into town in the morning for some reason to talk to they think that they catch the guy, because they catch the drifter with the cigarette.
Yeah, drifter from the gas station earlier. They catch him. He's in jail.
Yes.
And they're like, boom, we got him. Boom, we got him.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to note is they don't like secure the crime scene.
Oh yeah.
They don't do any sort of investigation. They in fact leave the group of friends at the crime scene.
Yep, to do whatever. But they do take their car keys, so they cannot leave.
Which I don't think a cop can do that. I don't think that's legal. I don't think you can just take somebody's car keys.
I mean, it can in the town of... I was hoping that you would say it right after.
Sorry.
Unfortunately, this movie is not very Googleable, so I can't like find out the information on it. Sorry, the Mexican bladder infection is making I'm salivating a lot, so you guys can probably hear me just being awful right now. I can't remember the name of the town, but they do talk about the town in the
probably in that song.
All the songs. They do it in multiple songs, which it is available, and I'm going to look this up, actually.
Oh, yeah, it's on Spotify.
Yeah, and it doesn't have very many listens, so I want everyone to go listen to it if you can. It's like the Zachariah and... Oh, here we go. Zachariah and the Lobos Riders. So 100% recommend. Go check that out. The rating of the soundtrack is much higher than the rating of the movie. But I assume people aren't just randomly listening to the soundtrack and then being like, oh, I'm just going to listen to the soundtrack.
That's so
But yeah,
rude. The
soundtrack's great.
soundtrack can be streamed, but not the movie. Let me
Yeah.
stream it. Let me buy this movie.
Yeah, I was like, if they had just had it streaming somewhere, I would have paid a large amount of money for it. And by large amount, I mean in streaming terms. So like $15, $20. That's a large amount to me for streaming. Especially a movie that came out in 2004.
I'd pay $20 for this for sure.
I paid I think $6 to rent it. I would pay $6 again and again. It's like back when I used to rent movies. I used to rent them 20 times before ever purchasing, which economically it made more sense to purchase. But because it doesn't exist to where I can purchase it, it's fine. We also, in this search, we did find out that Netflix does still have a DVD service in which you can get DVDs mailed to you.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Not this one, though.
Sorry. Anyway, back to the movie. I forgot where we were.
Okay, some of them are in town. Yes. Drifter's in jail. Police think they've caught the guy.
And they asked the girl, what's her name again? Sarah. They asked Sarah and Christian to come in. And they come in because they said that they did see a drifter the night before at the
gas station.
So they came in, and then I remember because they said it did show a scene at the beginning where somebody was like taking out a cigarette and stepping on it that hadn't been lit. And then they caught the drifter. So the Jeffrey Dean Morgan's character, probably the sheriff, we'll call him the sheriff. The sheriff picked up the cigarette that was on scene. And then he goes and he was like, oh, so you gave him a cigarette at the gas station? Because he's like, recount what happened at the gas station with this drifter. And then Christian recounts it. And then he says, oh, like this cigarette? But it was a different cigarette than what he had given him. And he was like, no, not that. And he was like, okay, fine. And then he just puts it up and he was like, and they were both like, can we go now? And he's like, yeah, we're not comfortable letting you guys go yet. And then because of the box that he was praying over, Sarah gets an idea to go to, I think, the records area. Or are they all in town at this point? And then half of them are like, we want to get drunk.
Yeah.
And then the other half are really like, we're going to go look at records.
Yeah, so they go to the library to do research. I guess on the box, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's weird because they were just like, oh, I know. It was so weird because I was like, why would you go to, do you even know what you're looking for? Because they were like, I want to figure out why this murder happened. Let's go look at old newspapers. And I was like, do you even know what you're looking for? Like, you're just going to go in blind and look at a bunch of
microfiche.
I was like, what is happening? And then they meet a character, Lisa Belmont, who is the records keeper.
She's the best.
She is. Well, whenever I was meeting her, I was like, because you have like, you look at all the characters and you kind of are like, which is the person that I am most like?
Oh, yeah.
Whenever I met her, I was like, oh, I feel like that's the person.
But she ends up being a badass. So.
She does, but at the beginning she's just very excited and she's like, hey friends, and she just keeps calling them friends with an accent, and she's like,
it's a lot to take in.
Yeah. She's just like, hey friends, let's go to the back. And then at some point they said something about what was happening at the house. She's like, you're not going to find what you need in those books. And then they're like, what are you talking about? And then she goes into a story about how she knows that Mr. Wise had his son and wife die at like long time ago. So then they end up putting that somebody sees them at the, what are they called? Cemeteries where bodies are buried.
The cemetery.
They dug up the child and then they put something into a box, and he had a Tibetan monk with him.
Yeah.
Which I think you find out he's not Tibetan. They had a monk with him, and then the drifter corrects it and calls him Thai later. So a Thai monk.
Okay.
So she's like, so we know that he did something, and they did a bunch of chanting, and there's something with a box and there's chanting, and that's what she knows. And then weird stuff started happening is what she said.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if weird stuff started happening. She just said that dark thing happened. And then I guess he hasn't been the same since, and it has to do with
that. The singing narrators told us that weird stuff happens at that inn, so I think you're right. I think she must have said that.
She's like, something's going on with this.
Something's going on.
Yeah. They end up going to the other half of the friends. David, Kate, and Melody, all three go to the barn. They're the sheriff tells them that there is this barn party going on. So they're like, okay, let's just walk to the barn party. I also appreciate that the small town has a very walking mentality, and he keeps saying, oh, it's about 20 minutes that way, so we might want to do this. And everyone talked about only walking places, which is good because they don't have the keys to their vehicles. So he's like, go
Very
walk down to the barn party. So they go down to the barn party, and they're just hanging out. And then they just talk to a lot of people who are from a small town. I don't want to say that they're they're just country. I don't want to say they're country. Southern. They could be they could be northern, but they're definitely country people.
Based on Little Miss Librarian's accent, they sound like they're Michigan or something.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was gonna say there is a part when they're walking that a truck stops and is like, oh, we have some roadkill, do you guys want it? And he lifts up a deer or something, and they're like, and then Melody says, oh, I don't eat meat, I'm vegan. And then he said, what about beaver? And then he lifts up a beaver.
But it's it's a joke. You see what they did.
Yeah. But I also, in the behind the scenes video that I sent you right before this, is they did actually get a real beaver, and they had to thaw it out for that shot. Which they shot the movie in I think less than 3 weeks. So
oh my god,
I'm sure thawing that beaver was a lot harder than they expected. But that's probably got to be 1/8 of their budget was just getting the beaver,
just getting that beaver warm.
But they end up going to this lovely barn party. Everyone seems like a lot of fun. Trying to think of what else happens. Oh, while this is happening, Johnny gets locked out of the house. And so Johnny's the weird friend again. I didn't even mention that he was still in the movie because I feel like that's the feeling you get about him, is that you kind of forget that he's around.
Until he's around.
Yeah, and we're getting there.
We're getting there.
So then Johnny ends up being like, hey guys, you locked me out of the house. And no one's at the house because they've all left to go into town. So Johnny then decides to grab a ladder and go up into the window. So he
goes into Mr. Wise's room, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And knocks over and opens the box while he's climbing in.
I feel like I should have written down what the name of the box is.
I have the phrase Kuman Thong written down.
That's correct, and that is in the music.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, because then they made a joke about you think you may have seen a Kuman Thong on the beach in the summer or something. And I was like, oh, I see what you did there. Yeah, I just have good fortune Buddhist box. Oh, I think that's what he calls it at the beginning whenever he's describing it to her before they give it the real name. So then he goes up and then he knocks over the box, and then all of a sudden the gardener gets murdered.
Yeah.
By Johnny. I think you see that it's Johnny. I don't think that that's hidden.
I can't remember. We know it's Johnny in our hearts.
Yeah, it's definitely, and he looks a little off. He looks a little pale. Little pale.
Yeah.
And this is a part where, okay, so whenever I went to go get the movie at the video store, we went up and asked where it would be, and they were in the zombie section. I was like, the fuck?
Yeah, it's a zombie movie. Surprise, motherfuckers.
So then I already knew it was going to be a zombie, but I remember halfway through the movie, or before it got to that point, I was like, did they mislabel this? Did they put this in the wrong section? I honestly thought they put it in the wrong section. Because I was like, none of this is happening. This is just a normal murder mystery. Just going along for the ride. And so...
Oh, but we're about to kick things up a notch.
Oh, yeah. So then Johnny now decides that he's going to go to I think he's just walking around and murdering people.
Yeah, he's just murdering whoever.
Townsfolk. And then he goes and he sees a poster for the barn party that everyone's at.
Yeah, so he is zombified, but he can read. You know?
It didn't impact his
No, he's still literate. So he heads on to the barn party, and this scene is so frenetic. This scene is crazy. Can you explain to me? Okay, so here's what I remember of the scene. Johnny comes, everybody starts fighting everybody, but people are turning into zombies. How does that happen? How is it transmitted?
So what the first thing he does he goes up to Deputy Enos, and he pulls out a piece of his hair and he puts it in the box. So you have to put
That's right. You have
pieces,
to.
items of the people, and put it in the box. And once you put it in the box, they become a zombie. But
Right.
they're not zombies. And whenever we meet the Drifter or talk to the Drifter some more, we learn more about what they are.
Right.
And he's very adamant about them not being zombies.
But they zombies.
But they're totally
am I
zombies.
right?
But that's so. Then he first starts with that deputy. He pulls out his hair, he puts it in the box, and then he has a gun and he turns and he shoots someone. And then everyone just starts fighting, and then half and half, slowly they start putting items in the box, which makes me feel like the box has to be way bigger than it actually is.
Oh, no, it's got like a Mary Poppins thing going on.
Oh, yeah.
It's bigger on the inside.
That makes sense. Is that Mary Poppins or is that
it's Mary Poppins and Doctor Who and Harry Potter.
All
Take
of
your
them.
pick. Here's something I want to talk about in this scene. What's the name of the bad boy? David takes antlers off the wall and murders a zombie with the antlers. He like runs at him, antlers to the chest. Very effective. And I recently saw a movie where this same thing happened.
What?
I know. It's called After Midnight. And it is
I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it.
Oh, I highly recommend it. Yeah. It's like it's a monster movie, but it's also a love story, and it feels like it could be a stage play. Like there are scenes that are they remind me of plays. It's very good. It's more artsy than Dead and Breakfast.
Okay, I was gonna say, was it as funny in that one?
It's not fun. There are some funny parts, like Henry Zabrowski is in it. But it's good. I recommend it. Okay, so I just wanted to call out the antlers because
I can't believe it did it in another movie.
I know, and I had just watched. Maybe. But I had like just watched After Midnight, so when I saw this scene, I like screamed and texted a friend of mine who had watched After Midnight with me. Like, oh man! Guess what I just saw?
I was gonna say that entire scene, like I don't want to be like the kills because like technically not anybody dies because as long as you get a piece of them,
yeah.
They
but the kills are cool. Yeah.
I thought that there's like one where they threw a symbol at someone.
Oh, that's right.
It was weird because they like had to keep killing people in weird ways, and you could see their reactions every time they did it. They'd be like, I don't know why I'm doing this. And it was really good. And it was all three of them, Kate, David, and Melody, all had to kind of hurt people in those ways. So that was really fun. And then Christian and Sarah show up at this point. I think that they might have had did they go break out the Drifter? I think that there was something with the Drifter at some point. The Drifter gets broken out. I don't know if it happens before or after this.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's pertinent to the plot. I mean, him breaking out and them having him with them is pertinent, but when it happened, I don't know if it's super pertinent. But they go in, and then Christian's trying to help, and then Christian gets decapitated. And I guess Johnny really hated Christian. But I thought he would have hated David more, so I don't know why he hates Christian so much. Yeah, because I thought Christian defended him at the beginning, but maybe I missed that. But I was like, oh, but yeah, he gets the head falls off, and he doesn't make him into a zombie like the rest of the folk. The rest of the folk get made into zombies for the most part, and
not our core group, just the rest of the townsfolk.
Not the core group, not Christian, David, and also the sheriff is with them. So the sheriff has joined in to this group, to this core group, and they have all gone.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan, just for those of you who might have forgotten.
The reason that we're doing so they're all together now, and I think the Drifter has to be with them if the sheriff's with them at this point.
Yeah.
Then they all they get them, and then they go back and they get into the sheriff's truck, and then they start driving. No, the Drifter gets out on his own, and then the sheriff hits him with the truck on the way out. And then they get him, and then they put him in the truck, because I really like the scene where they expected Jeffrey Dean Morgan, the sheriff, to just pull him out, and then he has to yell at David to come help him, because I was like, obviously that's so hard to pick somebody up, and I'm like, I'm glad they didn't ignore the logistics of this. So they end up all going back to the house, and so now they're boarding up the house, and they do a pretty good job. I'm actually really impressed, because I was like, for a horror movie, this is a really good job of boarding up a house. And then they end up finding a bunch of items to use, or they start trying to get a bunch of weapons together. And there's a really great scene here where he finds the chainsaw, and there's a Evil Dead poster right above it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm happy you put that in there. Good job, man. And
I cannot wait to watch this movie again. I am so excited.
It's so good. And then they just grab all these items, and one of the items that they end up grabbing are just like pipes from the wall, and that's when you see, like, it kind of cuts to Sarah. It'll cut back and forth from the zombie horde, but the zombie horde kind of starts making its way over at this point. But she starts making something where you just see her using pipes and screwing stuff in and like doing different things, and you're like, oh, I wonder what she's doing. But she has like pipes, and they found like a thing of shotgun shells, but no gun.
Right.
So she's working on these pipes, and then at some point she hands something to David, and she's like, here, do this, just hold this up. And then she goes back behind him and she hits it with a hammer, and a shotgun shell is it shell? I don't know much about guns. Just shoots out.
She made a gun
item.
She made a gun, bitches.
She made a gun from the pipes used in because they were doing renovations to the Dead and Breakfast, which Mr. Weiss's Dead and Breakfast. And so now they have a couple guns that they can use in order to go for this. And the Drifter lets them know that, hey, they have to be killed like zombies are killed. But he's like, but they're not zombies, because they're somewhere between dead and alive. They're not really dead, but they're not really alive. And he keeps trying to correct it as it goes along. But
sorry, bud, they zombies.
They're zombies. So now they have these like items that are like guns, and all of the zombies have lined up outside. Is where we're at now. So the zombies have lined up outside, and they have the band is now a zombie.
The band is now a zombie.
The band is now zombies. So they are bringing.
They're still singing. The music, they're still narrating.
Yeah, and it's perfect. And that's how I keep up with everything that's going on. Is exactly what they're saying. And at one point there is a zombie line dance that is done very well. Big fan. It's
perfect
so
movie.
So they're all just hanging out, and at some point I think that they start using the guns. So they have like a hammer, and then they use the gun for the hammer, and then they just shoot and everything with the guns, the pipe guns.
So while they were coming into the house, somebody trips and falls.
Yes, David.
David trips and falls and bleeds on the
profusely.
Stairs. On the stairs. So some of his DNA is outside. Wah, wah.
Yep. Which Johnny does get privy to after some time, but it takes a bit. It takes a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then whenever they get an idea. So then this is also whenever the team split up. So then Melody, the sheriff, and the Drifter all go, because they're like, how do we do this? And it turns out the Drifter is actually somebody that I don't know, follows dark magic a lot, or dark
I guess so.
rituals.
He knows how to undo this.
Yeah, he came into town because he knew something was happening, and that's kind of like his thing. So he was like, oh, what we have to do is we have to go, it's kind of gross, we have to go get his body, and we have to They said that the only way to do it was to get the person who put the items in the box, which was Mr. Weiss, get his body, sharpen his bones into stakes, and then stab the main villain, which was Johnny at this time, that has been possessed with whatever demon was in that box, with these bone stakes.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody else can be killed by
headshots.
Yeah, headshots, or dislodging the head from the brainstem or something like that.
Headshots, got it.
Yeah, exactly. You know how you kill zombies. So they're pretty good at taking them down. Some not really, some all right. They have some really good kill shots in it. And I'm going back to the house, and I didn't get back. So half of them are at the split. Yeah.
Yeah, some of them are going to the cemetery, and some of them are still at the house.
Yes. So the Drifter and Melody and Sheriff are at the cemetery, and while they're at the cemetery, they run into another character. They run into some other characters, but
He's the
it's
doctor. They run into the doctor.
yeah,
And there's
yeah.
that funny exchange where Jeffrey Dean Morgan is like, "How do I know you're not a zombie?" And the doctor's like, "How do I know you're not a zombie?"
And he was like, "Who won the cow patty tossing contest 2 years ago?" And he was like,
Trick question.
"We do that every other year." And then I was like, "Oh." He's like, "That's him." And I was like, "I mean, the zombies still seem like they're of sound mind. He could answer that as a zombie. Like, they're not different." We saw the religious guy go up to the door of the house and like start to give a sermon. So they know their past. They know what they're doing. But it was enough, and he wasn't. He wasn't
No, he
a
wasn't.
zombie.
No.
But at this point, they're digging up the grave, and then a zombie shows up and takes out the sheriff
So
and the
sad.
doctor. I think they both get taken out.
They both get taken out. I can't remember the order.
Yeah, I think the doctor might have gotten taken out first, and then the sheriff comes up to help, and then the sheriff gets taken out.
Something like that.
Yeah, so not great. So we have to say goodbye to Papa Morgan at this point, and the team has to carry on, which is now just Melody and the Drifter.
Mm-hmm.
But now they have their lovely bone steaks, and they're going to head on back. And in the meantime, we have David, Kate, and Sarah still
Sarah.
fighting off the horde of zombies. And they're doing a good job, honestly. They're doing a really good job. They're using everything that they have. They're using mostly those guns, but once again, they have a finite amount of bullets or shells or whatever. And so they keep trying to reload, and then at some point they don't reload fast enough. And then at some point David notices that his blood is on the ground.
Yeah.
And when he notices, Johnny also notices.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit." And then you see this one girl who is a zombie who is she missing her legs? Something's weird. She has to crawl.
Yeah.
She's having a time. Maybe that happens after he shoots her, but there is a girl who comes up and that is trying to get the blood because they noticed the blood at that time. I have no idea how the communication worked in this process to get that blood or how they knew it was his blood. I don't know. But at some point she goes and she just gets like a rag, and then there's a fight, and then even David goes outside and tries to fight with his hands, and then everyone's pissed off at him because they're like, "Why the hell would you go out there?" He still has not told anybody that his blood is out there and that he could be a zombie
So
soon.
it's your classic, like, I've been bitten and keeping it secret.
Yeah, exactly. So he does not tell anyone, and then he gets his blood put in the box. And then he proceeds to murder his girlfriend first and foremost. They were fighting a lot right before that. I don't even know if he needed to be a zombie to do that. It just seemed like it was coming anyway. So it happened. And then he tried to go after Sarah, but because Sarah is obviously, she just made a bunch of guns. She's very crafty. She knows what she's doing. And she ends up sawing his head off with the chainsaw.
Hell yeah.
So she ends up just doing something really awesome and taking him down. And then at some point they start breaking into the house, and then it's just basically
because it's just like, her now, and you need 2 people to operate the guns. Yeah. Like, she
does do a thing where she's trying to make her own giant gun, and she tapes like 5 of the pipes together very short.
Oh yeah,
very short. And then she shoots what she can from her hand.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that she's like, "I'm done. I don't have any more bullets." So she's now like trying to use an axe, and then just trying to use whatever she can find. And
this is a very claustrophobic scene. Like, all of those zombies, like,
it's in a hall. It's like
she's in like a stairwell.
Yeah. Ugh. Oh, it's so bad. Yeah. And then she goes back to Melody, who is now looking at Johnny, and her and Johnny are like face to face, and she has a crossbow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember when that happened.
Yeah, I bet it's like
from the beginning. Well, she ends up shooting him with the crossbow, but it's just crossbow that she shoots him with.
Yeah.
First, she just shoots him with a regular crossbow arrow,
right.
And then he's coming up to her, and like it's about to end. And I think he even told her he was going to kill her or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look to the side, and she sees one of the steaks, one of the bone steaks. And then she grabs it, puts it in her crossbow and then shoots him in the heart, and then we're all good.
Yay!
And it takes Johnny down. I feel like this is very anticlimactic, but this was a really exciting time, and I'm not
This is
telling
a
it well
really
enough.
exciting movie.
So you guys watch it because I am terrible at describing how cool this was. But then she goes in and she finds Sarah, and she has to make sure that Sarah's not a zombie. And I remember them having an exchange, being like, "How do I know you're not a zombie?"
Oh, another
And Sarah
one?
was like, "I don't know who I am, but I'm sure as hell not one of them." Because they
Oh,
all there's
yeah.
such a changing experience because they've all just murdered so many people now.
And Melody the vegan included, murdered.
Yeah. And that's even whenever somebody hands her a gun at some point, and she's like, "I can't, I'm vegan." And they're like, "Oh, okay." So yeah, and then it ends up just being, I think, like the drifter and
And the two gals, the final
two girls.
girls.
Yeah, and they end up just leaving.
They just get out of town.
Oh, we forgot the best part.
What?
At some point, she got the crossbow because it was the girl from the records.
Oh my god! We left that out! Oh my god!
So guys, go watch the movie because we have made it seem less cool than it is. Oh man. Yeah, there is the girl who's in the records comes out, and then they all get attacked by a bunch of town zombies, but she comes out and she shoots them all with her guns, I guess.
Yeah, she has been stockpiling guns in the library. Many scenes before, we thought that she died. Like a zombie made it into the library, and we think that she's been taken by surprise and she's gone. No, she killed that zombie, and then she slayed a whole bunch of others in the town square.
Oh yeah, she was perfect. And that's how they got the crossbow.
That's how they got the crossbow.
Yeah, because she's the best. She was the MVP, honestly. And I think that they end up saying goodbye to her. And they all end up
and she's just like the sheriff now. She like takes the badge from Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
So wait, the doctor died. Did Jeffrey Dean Morgan die whenever they went into town?
It was when they were in town.
And then that's how they got the sheriff badge. Oh my gosh. I hope you guys aren't coming here to hear us tell this story and just for our fun commentary, because I am not good at telling the story.
It's a perfect movie. I cannot stress that enough.
And even the end song, like just the narration with the music was the best of all of it, and I could not get over it. And just hearing, and they did different styles of music, and they were all like very early 2000s music, not all of them, but like it had a handful of early 2000s type music, and I was like, oh, I know this is I don't know if this is okay for you to do.
It was perfect. I'm glad they did it.
It was so good.
Flawless. A flawless film.
There was something else I wanted to say about it, and now I can't remember.
Oh, Portia de Rossi is in it.
Oh yeah, she is. That was Portia so weird.
So remember how they were going to a wedding? Portia de Rossi was the bride, and she calls. Was it Sarah who was supposed to be the maid of honor?
Kate. It was Kate.
Kate was supposed to be the maid of honor. Portia de Rossi calls and is like, "You bitch!" And did somebody sleep with somebody?
Yeah, David, Kate's boyfriend, did sleep, and then it was like, who? Oh, and we left out the whole part where Johnny was using Christian's head as a puppet for like a million scenes. He would just talk through the puppet of his head.
Oh, guys, find this movie.
Watch it.
If you find it on the internet, let us know where. How do we get this movie to the masses?
It's so good. It is so good. I can't get over how good it is.
And I can't get over... It started... I really thought it was going to be so bad. Oh, what a treat. What a surprise treat.
Yeah. I'm trying to see if there's any... I have no idea how it's not. Right after I got done watching it, I just said I have no idea how it's not more famous.
Yeah, this should be a cult classic.
Yeah, it's so good. And I was like, are there a bunch of movies that just never got out there that I've never seen? And this has a terrible rating on IMDb.
What is it?
5.8.
Is that not better than The Unholy?
I mean...
it is a better movie than The Unholy.
For their rating? Oh, it is way better than The Unholy. I'm going to watch Dead and Breakfast multiple times. I'm probably never going to watch The Unholy. The Unholy is 5.1, but they're still sitting in a 5 range, and I feel like, I don't know, for me, this would have been a 9.
This is so good. I cannot stress that enough. I cannot stress it enough.
Yeah. And I watching the behind the scenes too, I was like, Oh, I liked watching because they talked about the people who did the practical effects for like the blood spill and everything. They were just like, I don't know, it was really fun to watch them talk about it and just be like, everything we thought of, they used. And I was like, and you guys did a great job. I'm glad they used all of it.
I'm so excited to watch this behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. Really enjoyed this movie. This one. It's not for the weak of stomach. Okay, that's fine. Sorry. Now I'm trying to read. I just like every time I read the reviews. Some people get it.
Some people get it. Oh my God, it's so good.
Will I judge you negatively if you don't get it? Nah. I mean, there are people that aren't going to like it, but...
I'm going to feel sad for you, though.
Yeah, because it's so good.
It's so good.
It is so good. Yeah, well, that's all I have to say about that, I guess. I can't think of much more. Oh, no, I did. I had a question. Who killed the French guy?
Who killed the French guy? Nobody was zombied yet. That's a great question.
Yeah, and then Ryan and I tried to listen to the soundtrack to figure out who killed the French guy. We don't know who killed the French guy. Who killed the French guy?
Huh.
Because we were trying to be like, okay, maybe the French guy went upstairs and he accidentally touched the box and then something happened. I was like, but why would he stab himself if he was now the zombie?
Right.
I was like, and then they were like, maybe it was Mr. Wise touched the box and he went down, he killed him, and then he had a heart attack because he had to put him back in the box or something. I was like, trying to explain this is so hard. Who killed the French guy? Who killed the French guy? Yeah, don't know who killed the French guy. And who had that cigarette? Because it was not the drifter who had the cigarette, because that wasn't the cigarette.
So is there
another
drifter? Is there another murder?
I was hoping there was going to be a sequel.
I would love a sequel.
Yeah. Because it feels like even the first part had to happen for them to get stuck in town. But it seems like everything that needed to happen was just him getting locked out of the house and having to go up the ladder. But who killed the French guy? I don't know who killed the French guy. That's still the question that I have open. So if you ever figure it out, let me know.
Okay. I'll think on it.
Thanks. Give it some thought for sure.
Okay, I guess that's the end of the episode. Thanks for coming to Never Show the Monster. This Dead and Breakfast was an exception, I guess. You could show the monster in this one.
Oh yeah. I mean, we don't know what the actual demon looks like, just the possessed person.
Just the possessed. Yeah, that's a good point. Anyway, follow us on Twitter at noshowpod. If you want to send us an email, I believe it's also noshowpod at noshowmonster. At noshowmonster on Twitter, noshowmonster@gmail.com. I'm Kelly Adway.
I'm Chelsea Hollander.
And if you are watching The Wheel of Time, sorry, Chelsea, I'm going to plug my other podcast.
Do it.
If you are watching The Wheel of Time or you've read the books and you want to talk about it, I've got another podcast called 13th Depository that I co-host with a friend of mine. Check that out wherever you get this podcast. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Bye.